Welcome back to A Better Life. I'm your host, Hank Hennigan. And this segment of our show is a great dear friend of mine, Mr. Tony Perkins. Hello, Mr. Tony.
Hank, good to see you.
Oh,
it's been a
man.
while.
People watching A Better Life, I've known Tony Perkins for a number of years. And he has been a state legislator here in the past and representing the northern part of the parish of East Baton Rouge. And now, for many years, he has been the CEO and director of the Family Research Council in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, for 16, going on 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
I've been to your office up there, and I know what you do, and I'm telling you what, people watching A Better Life, Mr. Tony Perkins really has an eye out and an ear for what's going on in Washington regarding not only our city, our state, our nation, and around the world as well. Tony, tell the people watching A Better Life about Family Research Council and what you do there, and what is it, the purpose?
Well, very similar to those in Louisiana that would be familiar with the Louisiana Family Forum,
right,
which I started when I was back in the legislature and then hired Gene Mills in 1998, and Gene's doing an outstanding job. We do that nationally. And so the Family Research Council has been around about 35 years.
Right, 83, I believe. Right?
Yes, it was started by Dr. Dobson and some others, and then I was hired as I was ending my second term as a legislator here in Louisiana. And so I've been there, be 16 years in August. And what we do is we work to shape policy as it pertains to the family from a Christian perspective.
Sure.
We're unapologetically Christian.
Come on.
And we believe that if the nation was good enough to be built upon biblical principles, it's good enough to be guided by those biblical principles today. And so we work on tax policy, we work on education policy. Obviously the issue of marriage and family is a big issue today, and what's being our children are really being indoctrinated in our schools, and so we're challenging parents from God. As parents, we're given the authority and the responsibility to teach our children.
Yes.
Now, we can delegate the authority, but we can never delegate the responsibility, and as parents, we're going to be held accountable for what happens to our children.
Sure.
And when you look at the curriculum in our schools when it comes to sex ed and really the sexual confusion that our children are being exposed to with this whole gender issue. Look, Jesus was very clear about this. In Matthew chapter 19, Jesus said, have you not read from the very beginning that God created them male and female?
Female, yes.
And for that reason, a man will leave his mother and father and cling to his wife, and they'll become one flesh. And so, Jesus spoke to this. This isn't Old Testament, as some people would want to say. This is New Testament. This is Jesus. This has been the history of mankind from the beginning.
That's right.
And so we don't need to apologize for
that.
And we should work to shape our policies that reflect that. And people say, wait a minute, you're trying to impose a theocracy. No, not at all, not at all. What we're simply saying as Christians, we have every right to bring our views and perspective to the table to shape public policy.
Sure.
That's all we're saying.
Hey, I was telling someone the other day, I remember growing up, elementary, junior high, and high school, we would, stand up as soon as we entered our first class and stand up there, and the principal would come over with a loudspeaker, and he or one of the other students or assistant principal or teacher would pray, and then we'd pledge a flag over every chalkboard there, and we'd stand up, and I don't even know if they do that anymore in public schools.
It's controversial. In fact, there was a school in Pennsylvania just recently where they would say the pledge, they allow them to say the pledge, but then the principal on the speaker system just ended the pledge by said, "God bless America," and an atheist organization came against them to sue them, and so the school has stopped saying "God bless America."
Yeah.
Because they said it was a prayer, which is really interesting to me. The reason they say that, Hank, is they say, well, children are very impressionable, and therefore we shouldn't expose them to religion. But at the same time, we expose them to all this radical sexual confusion, and we allow our kids to be exposed to that. Look, it's time for parents to stand up and say, not on our watch. These are our children.
Right.
We're going to instill our values in them. And parents need to realize they can speak up, and we empower them at the Family Research Council to do that. Again, we're unapologetically Christian. We think we have a right Historically, we've had a right in this nation, and we're going to defend that
Sure.
right. And part of that, a big part of what we do today, Hank, is religious freedom.
Sure.
Defending the ability to live your life according to your faith. That's what religious freedom is.
Right, right.
You know, in the last administration, there was a talk about freedom of worship. Well, freedom of worship is, you know, choosing what church you want to go to, what style of worship.
Yeah.
No, religious freedom is the ability to live your life according to your beliefs. And that's
Sure.
what the founders sought in this country, and that's
exactly
what we've
right.
had for the vast majority of our country's history.
And you know, and following what the Bible teaches, what the Lord
Exactly.
teaches, and what you know, God wants, you know, like you said, husband and wife and children to be disciplined by their parents and obey them,
And to be able to
if they're
pass-
disciplined at home, as the Bible, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child, then they'll be great students and with their.
Well, that's part of the
Discipline.
challenge. Is we see society falling apart is because we have many homes without fathers.
Yes.
And even in those that we do have fathers and mothers, there is a failure to teach, to train, to instill those values in our children. You got to be intentional about that.
When you and I grew up, if you got sent to the principal's office for speaking out or not obeying the teacher, bend over and you're gonna get a paddle with a paddle.
Yeah,
And-
but it was worse when you got home.
but look, paddle me at home, but please don't call my mom and daddy.
I know. It was worse when you got home. But see, it was a different day because the parents, they understood, they respected the authority in the schools because the parents had the ultimate authority, and that schools operated under that.
Sure.
It's been reversed today, so no one trusts authority.
That's right. Listen, good people watching A Better Life, I know Tony Perkins and his staff there at Washington, and he knows what's happening around the country. He's in constant communication with the White House, and is that correct?
Yep.
And
we work closely with this
yes,
administration.
and so I know that he lives here locally in right outside of Baton Rouge in the Pride area, or north of Baker here. But he is in Washington, D.C. regular. So, listen, we're going to be right back with Mr. Tony Perkins on the next segment of our show, so stay tuned.